Thank you. Thanks, Trek, for that wonderful intro. I think with this, though, it has to be working when you start for it to actually work right. But let's just get right into it. It's a simpler way to update your Ember apps. My name is Kelly Selden. You might know me as ember-cli team member or something else I may have broken. A little bit about me. I work at CrowdStrike in London. It's a cybersecurity company with all Ember front end. We're hiring any skill level, even junior. So if any of this sounds interesting, you can come chat to me or one of my coworkers with the same kind of shirt on. First, talk a little bit about history of how you may still be updating your apps or how you did it in the past. And then I'll do a little bit of a demo, and then go into a deep dive of what's going on during this process. And I might ask for some informal shows of hands of just to see how other people are doing their updates, or how you can see your coworkers or how peers are doing their updates. So in the beginning, there was Ember init. And first question, who all uses this to update their apps? Wow, not very many, okay. Well, if you didn't know, you run this command and it resets all of your files back to brand new. And so it's up to you then to just undo all that and just take what you need. And also it doesn't delete any removed files that Ember doesn't even use anymore. So I've seen a number of apps and add-ons at GitHub. They're all newest ember-cli. They still got that Brock file lying around. Still have a JS hint file just collecting dust. And then I started these output repos a bunch of years ago. And I used to be a manual update where every time an Ember update came out, I would just go punch in the new code and I would just keep doing that. But now it's automated as part of the ember-cli release process. And it actually goes back all the way to 0.0.41 of ember-cli. And interestingly, that version doesn't even install anymore. Because of NPM goodness, just fails to install. But with this, it's still a manual process. You have to just look at this and piece by piece go and apply this to your project, and you could miss something. Does anybody use these as part of their app updates? Okay, a little bit better. And now there is ember-cli update. So I have lots of add-ons. I have like 20 or 30, or I've lost count at this point. And I'm also a compulsive updater, and so those don't necessarily mix. Let you know how bad it is. A keynote update came out a few days ago, and you would not believe how hard it is to not press that update button. A risk of ruining this talk. So anyways, I created this to do most of the work for me. Is anyone using this already? Well, all right then. So there are two main commands. The API is very small and it's pretty easy. But you might be asking, can you just do it in one command? Why two? And so the reason is because the first update can give you some conflicts. It's just where the tool doesn't know what to do in this case. And that can leave some pretty ugly, you might have seen arrow, 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 head in some of your JavaScript files. And so then your code mods come around and they parse JavaScript and they just explode on stuff like that. So there needs to be an intermediate step where you're responsible for cleaning up a little bit. Here's the various ways to install and run it. These are just opinion options. Do whatever you want. The first one is what I tend to do, most comfortable to me. You just install it globally and you have it around whenever you want. The middle one is for people that prefer to use add-ons, they want it in their project, and they get a little simpler command, ember update. The last one is you don't install it. You just download it and run it on the fly. And so the benefit is it's always up to date. It's always the latest version. Out of curiosity, how many people know about or have used NPX? Okay, cool. Yeah. If you don't know about it, you should just look into it. It's pretty cool. It's all about, like, I want to run ESLint or Mocha or NodeMon or something, and I don't want to worry if it's on my system already. You just run it. All right, fake live demo time. And the reason I say it's fake is because this tool does lots of network traffic. And, you know, conference Wi-Fi and how many people are torrenting over there, you know, you never, could take forever. So I just made a little branch, and it just mocks all the network requests I'm doing, so it's all fake. Let's see what screen we got here. All right, let's see. Okay. So the scenario I have set up is I just npm linked my version of ember-cli-update. It's just the standard version, just with some mock network requests. So I could run this offline if I wanted to, but I believe I'm on the network. And then I am in an add-on I have called Ember Awesome Macros, but I just checked out a really old version, so there's actually something to update. And so let me channel my inner torrent and do some live coding really quick. E, M, B. Just kidding. All right, it's ember-cli-update. That's about it. And it's done. It's pretty verbose. It just gives you what it's doing in Git, but you'll see started at 2.10. That's a little small up on that screen even. Okay. It started at about 2.10, and then it updated to about 3.4 latest. And I guess we'll just pause right here. And you know, we all love to pick on Rob, right? You know, every talk does, but he had the bright idea to do ember-cli release last night, right before a conference, and all my slides are out of date now, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So this was the most recent version as of yesterday. But yeah, let's go see what it did. So this is just my Git GUI of choice, but we can see what it did. It removed my old Bower files. It added some ESLint files. Nothing too interesting. But we'll go over to package.json, and you'll see it made all the updates necessary to get me to the latest and greatest Ember. Not just dependencies, like it moved some repository tags around where we keep it now. But you'll also notice that I actually had like some actual custom stuff in here that I didn't want it to touch, and it didn't modify any of my dependencies. And then what I was talking about earlier, here's a JavaScript file, and it didn't know what to do, so it has a conflict in there. So that's one of the things, this little Git conflict stuff right here. That's up to you to resolve, but it marks it as conflicted, so it is Git aware, and you can use your merge tool of choice to resolve it. My Travis file is conflicted, and I figure if no one's ever went through conflicts before, I'll just like briefly, it shows you in like red which parts it needs help updating, and then you like say, oh, I want the right side here, and I want the left side here, and then when you save it, it's not conflicted anymore. It's good to go. So way too deep in the weeds to go over like what conflicts are and how to resolve them properly, so you can research that on your own. But yeah, I will just continue on. I am going to fake that I actually resolved all my conflicts and then committed. And so I'm just going to go over here and mark my ember-cli version up to the most recent as of yesterday. And now, yeah, I've just ran the update, and I want to run code mods now. And it's telling me, here's the list of code mods that apply to you. And so I'll just, let's just go with all of them. And then it just runs through them one by one. And it's running JS code shift, and I have lots of add-on files, and so it takes a little bit for each of them to run. And it should be done in about 3, 2, 1, done. I'll pop over here, and it did all sorts of things. Here we have new module syntax now. Let's scroll down here, new test syntax. And then you would commit, and then you're done. And that is the end of demo time. Lost my mouse. Hold on. Wow, I can't find. There it is. There's my mouse. OK. All right, so these are my, oh shit, the demo didn't work slides. So I'm going to skip those. All right, so what's happening? First, the tool detects your local version of Ember. And then it goes out to NPM to get the latest version. And then it clones an output repo, one of those ones I mentioned earlier, into a tempter. And it generates a git patch between those two tags, your from and your to, or your local and your latest. And then it applies that patch to your repo. And that point number 4 right there that is the bulk of the code of the tool. That is really hard to do. Taking a foreign repository that has nothing to do with your code base and trying to apply code to it, Git just doesn't like to do it. So lots of magic is going on there. Pros are, it only changes the code that needs to update. So no more resetting files back to brand new. It preserves your code. And it's aware of Git conflicts. And so you can use your Git tool of choice to resolve those conflicts. The cons are you have to be online to update, unfortunately. A little bit about the options. From and to are auto-calculated, usually. You don't need to supply them. From is your project version, and to is the latest version. But you can override them if you want. And that's useful if, say you've been updating your Ember version or ember-cli version and not touching the rest of your files, just doing those. So you're kind of out of date with the rest of the blueprints. So you can put your from back in time to an older version, and you'll take those blueprints with you. To is useful if you want to update incrementally. Or if you know your app is broken in the latest version, you can make it like latest -1. And so these are Semver aware as well, so you can put in the string of like to or beta, and it'll just resolve it for you. It can run through your merge conflicts for you. If you do resolve conflicts, it'll run your system git merge tool for you, and it'll like in sequence go through your conflicts. Reset is just like Ember init, but you can do it at any version you want using the to option. Compare only is a little shorthand. All it does is it opens up the output repo in a new browser window and sets the tags appropriately and gives you a diff. And that's just useful if you want to see what changes look like in a brand new application, not necessarily yours. Stats only just shows you everything it calculates about your project that's going to use in its processing. So you'll see it detected I was in an app. It detected my from in the to version. It detected what output repo I'm going to use, and then the code mods that are available to me. So this option, create custom diff, is brand new. And I just added it to satisfy Yarn users. So the output repos, they track what a default app changes look like. And it doesn't 100% apply to people that use options like Yarn. So it doesn't use the output repos. It creates its own diff by downloading different ember-cli versions and then making new applications in your system temp. And then it uses those to generate its own output repos. This unlocks customizations tailored to you. For instance, it uses your app name instead of the default my app that's stored in those. Or it uses your global.ember.cli settings to generate a yarn diff if you're using yarn. And so that brings me to this little tidbit. Not sure if many of you know this. I just recently learned about this, but if you put a .ember.cli file in your user directory and with options, whenever you create a new app or add-on, it'll use these options, so you don't have to do -- yarn when you do ember new. You'll just get a yarn project. And I'm curious, did anybody know about this? You learned something new today. You don't count. Yeah, so it is pretty powerful. Start using it, I guess. And the updater takes advantage of this to give you a personal diff with this option. So you might wonder, why is this not the default if it gives you a better diff? So still testing it out. I just made it, confidence-driven development for today. It's a lot slower than the output repo. But if your currently installed ember.cli version happens to be the from, and your global ember.cli version happens to be the to, it'll just use them. And so it'll be a lot faster this way. And then third reason is dependencies could be broken. And so the reason I did output repos and not this from the get-go is, one, it's faster, and two, it stands the test of time against Semver drift, which means you can update an ember.cli app from 0.0.41, which is 4 years old now, right up to latest, no problem, and it'll be instant. With this, good luck, it's just going to blow up. It can't even make an app that old. So just a couple downsides. So at this point, you updated your app, but you haven't run code mods yet. What you want to do is resolve any conflicts because of that JS parsing issue I mentioned earlier. And then you want to fix any broken tests, because you don't want to do it after you run code mods, because when you have test failures, who made them, my update or my code mods? And then for the same reason, you want to commit as well, because it's a lot easier to reason where your bugs might be coming from, or like a mix of code when they are combined instead of separate. All right, the option run code mods. It's a little smarter than just running a list of code mods. It uses your project type, your project version, and your node version to give you a list of code mods that apply to your project. For example, we're not going to run the code mod that removes all the this.gets if you're still on Ember 2, or we're not going to run the code mods that only support node 6 if you're on node 4. So this is what it looks like. This prompt is a recent addition as well. I gave this talk twice before, earlier versions of this talk, and both times the question came up, can I choose my code mods? Because before it just ran a list of code mods. And so now if you decide that one of them just does something you don't want it to do, you can skip it. So what it's doing is it downloads a manifest instead of bundling the code mods as dependencies. And then it uses npx to download and run the code mods. npx, that tool I mentioned earlier, we have to bundle it because it's only available in npm 5.2. And so not everyone has it yet, so we have to bundle it. The pros of this, you always get the latest code mod fixes. You don't have to worry about updating your ember.cli update version. You just get new code mod changes and fixes. We can even add new ones on the fly, and you don't even have to update ember.cli update itself. All you have to do is run the command, run code mods, and you just get new code mods. Some cons are this is not protected against bugs in code mods. So we almost go back in time a little bit to when we didn't have lock files, where a bug could come right directly to you. But this is kind of an experiment. I want to see if the pros outweigh the cons in this case, where you just get changes delivered to you without updating your updater. And it's also relying on internets, which means it can be pretty slow. And I would just mention a bonus con is changes in code mods can potentially break our test suite of ember-cli-update because we're actually testing the code mod process. And so we compare the outputs against our fixture files, and they make changes. Our tests are broken. But it's not so bad so far. This command just shows you the list of code mods available on the server. You can also see the commands we're going to be running and the conditions to run all these, in case you're wondering why one didn't apply to you. This might be a good time to talk about what code mods make it into this list. And so we're only putting code mods in here that affect like official Ember code, built-in code. For example, there's a pretty good code mod that converts Ember native DOM helpers to the new test syntax, but we're not necessarily going to put that in here just because it's not an official project, you would say. So I created this original list, but I'm not really actively searching for new ones to add, which means now I would say this is a community-maintained effort. So please write code mods and submit them to this list. There's a brand new tool called Code Mod CLI you should use.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So at this point, you've run your code mods. And of course, you want to fix any of your broken tests. And then commit. And you're done. I guess as part of becoming the official Ember updater, I guess if you would call it that, I put together this little power user guide. And you know, these simple commands sound simple, but you know, they don't work for everyone. So this is like how I would recommend doing really complicated updates, you know, like your Mammoth work app. And so the guide in a nutshell is you run your code mods first. And so even though you ran code mods in the past and you didn't update your Ember version because of how we download them, a code mod could have added a new feature or fixed some things or added some changes, and you would get those changes even though you didn't update your Ember version or anything like that. And then I would update a minor version just to reduce risk. Just go minors at a time, and then run your code mods again. So you might be placed into a new category based on that Ember version bump. New code mods might apply to you. And then rinse and repeat after that. So this is the repo URL. Check it out if you are curious about how I wrote it or if you want to contribute. Thank you.